All right, what's up, party people? BV here, and welcome to another edition of Retail Media Vibes, a doing business in Bentonville podcast. I'm excited today to have my guest, Amanda Wineland from Mars United Agency. And so Amanda and I have been friends for quite a long time, actually. And I was scrolling through LinkedIn and I was inspired by an article that Amanda wrote that I thought was really timely. And it's a great blend of humanity and psychology along with AI and a lot of other things mixed in, like shopping and consumer behavior. And it was like, wow, this really summarized a lot of things that I had been thinking about, and having the opportunity to know Amanda and have her come on the podcast. So I want to, welcome Amanda.
Thank you.
How are you?
I'm great.
Great.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, well, it's great to have you. Great to have you on the show. And I've known you for around 13-ish years, right? And when I met you, you were known as Danish because you were Amanda Danish at the time,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So in my mind, you're Danish.
Always.
I understand some people still call you Danish, even though you are Amanda Wineland, and that is your name on the article, right? And so, is it okay if I call you Danish?
Please do.
All right.
Yes.
All right.
In the professional world, I will always say Danish.
It's kind of like your brand, right? So
Yes.
Danish is like your brand, like BV is my brand, Danish is your brand. So
Yes.
I totally get it. So as I was talking about, I saw an article that you wrote, was Harmonizing AI and Shopper Psychology to Create Meaningful Commerce. So absolutely the longest title
Yes.
I've ever seen.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's really designed to grab you and suck you in.
Yeah. So we're going to jump into that article. So absolutely can't wait to dive into it. But I want to, at least start off with letting everyone know the magic of Danish, and, how you came to the role that you have today, and a little bit about your backstory.
In a way, I sort of fell into the role that I'm in.
Yeah, I love your story because I know this was not how you started your career.
It was not what I thought I would do. I didn't know this existed at all. I started off thinking I was going to be a family and marital counselor.
Okay.
So I got my undergrad in psychology.
Mm-hmm.
Like many college students, I was like, you know what, I'm going to take a little bit of time before I go and get my doctorate. So I took a little bit of a time off from school where I went and I was a neuropsychometrist for
A what?
A clinical neuropsychometrist.
I don't even know what that means.
Yes,
You just said foreign word. Right
It
there.
sounds so fancy, doesn't it? It just means I did neuropsychology testing,
Okay.
right?
So
for
like I
Social
would
Security.
put electrodes on myself, and every time I got a question wrong, you'd zap
I'd
me.
zap you.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that.
Or other things. But I did that for
Yeah.
a little while. Then I went and I was a case manager and counselor for a drug treatment court program.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yep. So I worked with felon drug addicts and alcoholics. Just turned out I am not cut out for that world.
Really?
I'm a little too empathetic. Took it home with me.
Okay.
So I quit my job. You could do that back then. And quit my job and went and I was a temp. And I was placed at an ad agency called
Really?
Thompson Murray.
Oh, Thompson Murray. That one sounds familiar. Tell me more about Thompson Murray.
Thompson Murray was Andy Murray's first agency.
Okay.
And
Sounds like he's done a few things.
he's done a couple things in his space.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
And I was an executive assistant there.
So you went from psychology, essentially, and to I guess an executive assistant is almost like playing psychologist.
It took a lot of mental fortitude.
I
It
could
did.
imagine.
It did. I was also a terrible executive assistant. I'll tell you that.
All right.
But being there, I got introduced to a gentleman, Dr. Chris Gray.
Yeah.
He has a company called The Bicologist now. But I went up to him and he said that he was the vice president of shopper psychology or something. And I, being me, laughed out loud. And I said, that's not a job.
Oh, wow.
That is not a job.
I'm sure that went over well.
He laughed too.
Okay.
And then it turns out that we both had the psychology background.
Mm-hmm.
We both worked in some of the same spaces. And so I started just hounding him to learn and understand what was going on. And eventually he hired me into that department, and we became Saatchi and Saatchi X, and worked my way up from temp assistant to, I think when I left Saatchi X, I was a VP, and then went
Of shopper strategy. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep. Yep.
And I went and joined Twin Oaks in the Mars agency,
All right.
where I'm SVP of Strategic Planning now.
Awesome. Yeah. It's quite.
Sorry.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a great story though, right? Because I think we all have our pathways to get to where we are. And, sometimes those stories are inspiring because, we all kind of meander sometimes through, there's very few people have that straight line career path. And, it takes us a little while to get where we really want to be. And to be honest, where we probably should be. Right. And that was, when I came into Saatchi X, like in 2012, rolling into 2013, I was being exposed to shopper marketing for the first time and, learning about, shopper psychology, shopper motivation, all those things was so fascinating to me. It's not an area that I'm, adept at in any way, but I always thought like there's been always this fascination for me about looking at how someone does something. And I think it goes back for me. I used to work at Nokia. And when I was at Nokia, I used to watch people, how they use their phones, right? And obviously I've seen an evolution of that. And it's always been something that's been interesting to me. But even, coming over to Saatchi and talking about shopper behavior, shopper psychology, motivations, all of that was really interesting to me to get to see that side of it, because I think those are areas that people don't really think about, right? I think because people just react. Like if I want to go buy something, I just go buy something. We don't analyze why we want what we want typically, and we don't plan out the processes that we're going to take before we make a decision technically, right? We react. And so there are motivations and psychology around that causes us to have those different steps. So, I was fascinated and learned a lot about that. And I've always had that in the back of my mind, even though it hasn't always been the forefront of my career and the jobs that I've done. So it's great to hear about your journey there. So, just a couple little icebreakers, and we'll start to unpack the article a bit. But if you weren't doing what you're doing now, what would be an alternate universe type of role for you?
So people who know me know that I actually pick up a different crafting hobby every year or two.
Oh, interesting.
So I would be like professional craft learner. Let's say that's
job. Okay. That's right. An amazing job.
I do everything from jewelry making to cross stitch to cards and stickers to, calligraphy and,
calligraphy,
paperwork here and there.
Cool.
So
you want to figure out something that you could just do that full time.
I just want to make cool stuff all the time.
It's almost art, right? Artists, creativity and all that. It's really, I don't think anybody's said that so far on the pod, so that's good. So we just had the biggest sporting event in the world, right? I guess maybe World Cup competes with that in some way or shape or form, but we just had the Super Bowl, or the big game.
The big game.
Yes, I may have to cut that Super Bowl part out. But we just had the big game. So there were some commercials, right? And so I'm sure you look at the commercials with a different lens than probably the common person. People are looking at for entertainment, engagement. You're probably looking at it, probably from a different, as I said, a different lens. What were some of the most memorable commercials for you?
So you saying I look at it through different lenses, absolutely true, because I actually have 3.
Okay, great.
People have been asking this question, right? So the first one, for sheer entertainment value, was Duncan.
Okay, yes, that was actually my number one as well.
Because of my age, all these 90s stars in the same place, throwing out the phrases that I remember from all the shows. Had to love it. Then there was one, it caught me in the feels. Like I got a little emotional with Lady Gaga.
Okay.
And Rocket Mortgage with the Please Won't You Be My Neighbor.
Yeah.
The Mr. Rogers of being a better neighbor to people. It was very timely.
Right.
And then there was one that, based on my job as a strategist, I thought it nailed the brief.
Okay.
Like I could see what the brief was. And that was the Novartis commercial, Relax Your Tight End.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
They knew their audience. They knew the barrier.
Right.
They attacked it in a way that felt relatable. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
I loved it.
I'm glad you brought that up because that's actually a game I like to play. And so being in the space that I've been in for as long as I have, like I don't pay to not get ads, right? So I always make sure that I like to see ads. I like to see what's happening, but I do often consider ads and look at them and say, okay, what was the brief? Am I the target shopper for this or the target audience for this? And, what are they trying? So I always play that game. So, it's interesting to see that you did that as well. I think one for me, just for pure engagement standpoint, which was with a little bit of surprise at the end, was the karaoke Coinbase ad where, did the Backstreet Boys karaoke, because it got people were singing, yes. Right? People were engaging. Nobody knew what it was, right? And obviously it's not a lot of tech that they put into their ad. It's a very simple ad, and it's Coinbase at the end. And everybody's like, ooh, Coinbase. But it got people engaged, right? And engagement is so important, especially in advertising today, that I think that it whether it delivered on what they were expecting to deliver on, that's up to them. But I do think from a memorable component and getting people to engage, I thought that one was really good as well.
Yeah, I think that's one of the other things that I'm always trying to figure out is what is their actual KPI for a big game commercial?
Oh, right. Yeah.
Because how many times have you seen one of those commercials later on talked about how great it was, but no one can remember what the brand was?
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
So,
absolutely. Yeah.
You got to figure out what your goal is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Well, all right, let's get into that article you wrote. Let's just set up the article. I know, excuse me, I know our audience hasn't listened, or probably many of them have not read it. Some have, but really help me understand like the motivation and the thought behind the article that you wrote and around that.
Yeah. I mean, you've known me for a long time. I am not a prolific writer.
Okay.
Right. I don't do that often.
I mean, you've written me some emails.
That was for cause. But it was just on my mind because there are so many people in my space, in the strategy and planning space, that are actually very against all of the AI use and are very hesitant about it. And it's the first time that a tech innovation has threatened the thought work space. And there are all these opinions about it and all these feelings about it. And I started thinking about agentic commerce, as you do on the weekend. And
I think about it all the time.
Right?
So
it's true. But I started thinking about it and I was like, what an amazing opportunity for strategy and for us as marketers to be able to speak to human beings at a level that we've never been able to before. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, there's a lot of risk within it that it could go wrong really easily. It could either be the most fantastic thing for shoppers ever, or it could fail miserably. Right.
Yeah. So I agree. And there's so many dynamics that are occurring in this space right now. AI is disrupting everything. The brands that we engage with are always asking about AI shopping and in all of the parts of that, and they're trying to get ahead of it, right? They're trying to figure out, how do I win? And I think the playbook is obviously still being written. And so it's hard to, predict exactly how it's going to go. But there is a lot of conversation about it in the space. And I think there's probably maybe even too much focus in that area, just because, again, the playbook hasn't been written. And so there's still some things that need to be decided. But, when you think about shopping behavior, right, and you have this disruption to shopping behavior, I think there are some things about shopping behavior that I think the audience would love to hear about. How should we think about shopping behavior in this new world of this multiple channel shopping opportunities, this omni-channel shopping opportunities that we have before us, right? So we have a whole lot of that now that we can shop in a lot of different ways, and AI is just one of those. So what are some principles around that?
Yeah, so there are a couple of things within that. The one thing that I'll say from the very beginning is that the why of us shopping hasn't changed much.
Yeah.
It's all about those emotional needs, whether we're looking for discovery or novelty or security or to display our values. It's the how that has changed.
Yes.
Right? So it's how do we express that? How do we begin to achieve those goals that we have and satisfy those emotional needs? And what we have to think about is people go to different channels for different purposes. They go to different retailers for different purposes. So think about buying a sweatshirt. If I go to Walmart versus Target versus Anthropologie, I have a different experience in mind. I have a different need I'm trying to fulfill and different criteria that I'm assessing the entire experience against.
Right.
Just like if I am shopping in person versus digital versus agentic, any of those different ways, I have different expectations that will cause me to be satisfied or dissatisfied with the experience. And that satisfaction or dissatisfaction is what determines whether I'm going to come back.
Right.
And whether I want to spend more money with it.
Yeah. So, how do you see how shoppers really make those decisions now when we have all this technology to make these decisions in a lot of different ways?
So what they're doing is they're building their confidence in different ways.
Okay.
And confidence is what you need to make a decision. You have to feel like you've gotten enough information, that you've seen enough options. And that's something that has changed a lot in the past few decades. Because, if you think about originally shopping, if you wanted to buy meat, you went to the butcher. You saw the case, they had this, you picked what they had. Now you have different retailers that you can get it from.
Sure.
You have individual butchers. You have any type.
You have choice. You can get it online, right? You have an e-commerce channel.
You can buy it you can have it shipped to you from Alaska.
Yeah.
Right? What that does is it creates this wealth of information and considerations, and your cognitive load is just getting filled and filled and filled and filled. And so the confidence is harder to achieve because you keep having one more thing to consider and another thing to consider. And so you end up not quite sure if you got the best thing. So you're like, well, maybe next time I'll try something else because I don't feel like maybe this was exactly it. So there's a lot of shifting that happens and your decision changes more frequently.
Yeah, it's like, you have information overwhelm is something I've talked about with a lot of people. And, now it feels like you have even more information. And so, obviously tech is there to hopefully distill that and make that decision-making process easier, right? And so, I know you and I have talked a little bit about like there are different shopping occasions, different moments, and different ways that people shop. There, high engagement versus lower engagement types of shopping, and what really motivates that behavior? Like why would someone spend less time shopping for toilet paper than a TV, for example, or do more research for that matter?
Yeah, there are a couple different elements to it. The first is simple interest, right? What am I interested in versus not? But the bigger criteria is risk.
Okay.
So what is the risk of me getting this wrong?
Right. Interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
So you mentioned toilet paper. What's the risk of buying the toilet paper that you...
a few people in the household will become irritated.
Literally, right?
Yeah.
So that's not a huge deal.
Right.
You're going to get past that. But what is the risk if you purchase the wrong skincare product?
Right.
You might completely break out and you have to go out looking like that. That's social risk in addition. So it's your appearance. So you're probably going to do a little bit more research, a little bit more fact finding if you're looking at skincare. Also, if you think about financial risk. So if you're going to go buy a car, if you are going to purchase electronics, you're usually putting in a lot more time and effort to make sure that you feel confident about that. And even things that are, my self-perception, things that are important to me, my values. So if I am the type of person so if I am someone who is looked at as high tech, right? Everyone comes to me to ask my opinion.
Right. Yeah.
For what should I have an iPhone or an Android BB?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Big question.
Hot topic.
Hot take. And then I'm going to put a heck of a lot more effort into what I'm purchasing and what decision I'm making.
So in your article, you talk a lot about, the distinction between helping shoppers and deciding for shoppers, right? So, I almost feel like, there are modes that people will unconsciously go into when they're going through that process or shopping process with an AI. Where do you see shoppers where they really want control, right? Because there's this whole idea like the AI will do the shopping for you, right? With very little human interaction. And then there's the other part of it where you're using AI to help make the decision, which kind of related to the last thing we were just talking about. So, where do shoppers really want that control? How do you think they are perceiving that?
So I think at its core, shoppers need all the control.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
It's just how that comes to life. So the idea of having an agent do things on your behalf, I need to feel like I've controlled as much as I possibly can up until that moment that they are going to go and do something for me.
Right.
And so people are going to feel a lot more comfortable with an agent repeating a decision they've already made. So glorified subscription service.
Yeah. We were talking about that because it's interesting because in order to get something when it runs out, there has to be still some sort of stimulus, right? So if you have something in your fridge and you're running out of milk, the fridge has to you have to communicate to the agent in order to get that replenished, or there has to be some sort of sensor that detects that, which, most people are not going to have a smart fridge that does that. It's, probably less than 1% of the total households would have that. So, what are you doing? You're doing another dash button on the refrigerator, and when milk goes out, you press the button. Well, that's subscription, right? Yeah. So I don't know if that's really solving a problem, right?
Yeah, it absolutely is not solving the problem. And which is why you don't see those buttons anymore.
Right.
Right. What was wrong about that concept was the idea of removing every bit of friction possible from a shopping trip.
Some friction is good, right?
Some friction is necessary.
Okay. All right.
I mean, absolutely necessary.
Yeah.
I feel very strongly about this.
Yes.
A little bit of friction, I think I refer to it as, micro frictions in my article. It signals something. It signals effort. It signals investment. And it signals this idea of, you get me.
Right.
You understand me because you're asking me to invest in an area that I care about. So if you know that as an agent, that I am on a discovery shopping trip. And so me as an individual, when I'm on a discovery mission, I'm a researcher, right? I want to know specs. I want to know all the facts about it.
Right.
I want to know all the things, the
right.
data points. Whereas someone else, when they're in discovery mode, might be more about what is the social impact of this? What is the corporate responsibility statements behind the company
right.
that makes this? Or someone else might be really checking on the social aspect of it in terms of what are other people saying? What are people like?
Semantics or sentiment. Yeah, sentiment.
Exactly. So it varies by person, even when you're in a certain mode.
Right.
So if I have an agent that knows me and can understand the signals that I'm giving it when I'm asking certain questions, then they're checking on the mission.
Right.
Right. What is my actual mission? And then it's about the context of that mission. So am I looking for novelty? Am I looking for confidence? Am I completing a ritual, right? So finding a gift. One of my best friends has a birthday coming up. And if I'm looking for a gift for her, I'm in a much different headspace than when I'm trying to replenish my dishwasher detergent.
Right.
And I need something different, need a different response. And you get the sense of the effort that is being put in by the agent, as well as the effort being put in by me. And it's bringing that element of humanity into the transaction. And that builds confidence in me.
Right.
That makes me feel like you're actually understanding. And like in your milk example, humans love to feel unique, and we are one of a kind.
Right.
I am perfectly unique, just like everybody else, right?
Yep.
And with milk replenishment, I don't want my fridge to go and just reorder the exact same milk I had last time. I want the option.
You want to try new milk.
I might want to try new milk this time. You don't know me. Right?
Yeah. Or maybe something has changed with your diet. Maybe now you've discovered you're lactose intolerant or something. Yeah.
And so even though I personally might buy the exact same, and I do, the exact same fat-free Fairlife milk every single time I go to the store, I still want the option to change my mind. Don't tell me what to do. Right?
I always think that there's this, I mean, you brought up something that's really interesting because it feels like there are products that you buy consistently, that you buy the same, but then there are other products that you will buy other flavors or other brand, like, it's kind of a mix of, our shopping list. They're like, I'm going to get the same type of sliced cheese every single time. But when it comes to shredded cheese, I'm going to do Fiesta. I'm going to do, a Colby Jack mix or what, right? So there, it's interesting, right? And so now you have these agents that are trying to balance the replenishment with the discovery, right? So help me discover a new flavor of shredded cheese, as an example, right? And so it is, where does that information come from, right? How does the AI make the decision on what to recommend versus not, or when you are asking it, what to buy?
Right. So that's what I find so interesting.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because the retailers and the brands, that's what they want to know is, how do I make sure that my product, my retailer, my site is the one being recommended?
Yes.
Right. But as a shopper, they want to know that what is being recommended is right for them.
Right.
That it's not a push. It's not a sale.
Right. Yes. And that's when you get into this advertising component that makes it a little bit weird too.
Mm-hmm. So from the shopper viewpoint, what I want is not automation, but co-creation. I want a conversation. I want to go back and forth a little bit with this agent. So it might say, hey, I know that you typically buy organic produce,
right,
and meat. How do you feel about that within your beauty products?
Right. Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
Yeah.
And I'll be like, you know what? Good question. I really don't care. Mm-hmm. I have other priorities when it comes to my hairstyling products.
Yep.
Right. And so it'll say, great, what are those priorities? And I'll say, I want something specifically for curly hair. I want something that is not going to be super expensive. And they'll say, I'm going to call this out for you. Something you might not have thought of is that a lot of times when something is specific to a hair texture, costs a little bit more.
Right.
Are you okay with
So it's more like an advisor.
Exactly. It's advisory, because that signals to me that you're doing what's right for me.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than saying, you have curly hair. Great. Here are 3 different shampoos that you should use for curly hair. I'm like, you don't know whether I have textured hair, whether I have coily hair, whether I have wavy hair, whether you didn't ask me any of those things.
Yeah.
You just automatically recommended a product. That tells me you're trying to sell those products to me.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting too, because I think everybody's trying to game the system, right? They, to your point earlier, they want to make sure that their product is the one recommended. And so everybody's trying to crack the code, right? So is it, references from reputable publishers? Is it Reddit feeds? Is it the ratings and reviews? You can go through ratings and reviews a lot of times. Like there's some in there that are good, some of them that are not good, but the product could still be good, right? So it's like, how do all that stuff being weighted in order to make that recommendation? And I know one thing that, was a big part of your article was about trust, right? So when you don't really understand where the sources are coming from, how do you have trust? Like how do you see the sourcing, the identification of the information, all that stuff to build that trust that I think shoppers need?
So the trust comes from that co-creation. It comes from the proving of itself to the end user, to the shopper.
Right.
One really interesting thing about humans is that we expect human error, and we're totally cool with it.
Yeah.
We have no problem whatsoever.
Right.
But
in some cases.
In some cases. AI is very different, because we are told constantly that AI is smarter than us, that it learns faster than us, that it can come up with things we can't. And as humans, especially as Americans, we're like, if you're going to say that, you better prove it.
Right.
So we are primed to look for mistakes. And when it comes to mistakes in AI, you make one and I'm done with you for the majority of people.
Right. Yeah.
It's not as smart as it thought it was. See?
Yeah. Yeah.
I could do that myself.
Yeah. And that's, I can see that. And that's one of the things I think, as people use it and their experiences will really determine what the future of adoption might be. It's just funny because, AI hallucinates. I don't hallucinate, but I make a mistake, right? So it is interesting, the terminology that actually gets used. So, when it comes to like establishing trust with an AI for a brand, let's say, like what are some of those things that you think are at least at this stage in the game are is good practice to help the AI understand it better so that they can make a trustworthy recommendation to that user?
I think one of the things that brands and marketers can do is stop focusing on the agent itself. Start focusing on the end user. So instead of saying, how can my brand get recommended more frequently?
Right.
Start thinking about, who is my brand best suited for?
Right.
What is the type of shopper? Is it people who are excited about, discovering something new? Is it someone who's looking for stability? Is it someone who wants to celebrate? Start looking at those things about your shopper and then engineer backwards.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So
because I think we've gotten into this performance mindset, right? So it's not about the art of marketing and supporting, the brand and the product. It's more like, how do I rank the highest? It's about numbers, not about kind of the things that you're talking about.
Absolutely. And one of the things that we've chatted about before is like, what would be different if marketers had to evaluate and measure trust versus, sales.
Right.
And, I thought a lot about that. And it's about, they would start thinking more about the long term. They would start thinking more about, what do I have to do to get this person to have a relationship with my brand?
Right.
To trust me, not only for this purchase, but when they're ready to make a different purchase, they're going to come back to me.
Right.
And you can start to create that by having agents that ensure that the the characteristics of your brand that meet their needs are going to match up, that they're going to be pulling that out. And asking those questions that will actually guide someone to say, that's actually exactly what I'm doing. And I never would have thought of that, because they're just looking for relief of that cognitive load, right? And increasing the confidence, because they can't evaluate every single product that's out there. But if I have an AI agent that can do that for me, they're going to go out and figure out comparing hundreds of products.
Yeah, they can process things so quickly, right? And large data sets, right? And so to get there.
But they're going to do that based on my criteria.
Right. Yeah. So there's that level of personalization that is absolutely, it has to know you. And so there has to be that context provided by those interactions between you and the AI in order to learn who you are, or you give it that information when you're engaging with it in order to understand that. I love your thought process there on the trust versus sales, because I mean, you're absolutely right. The challenge is that's a very heady, very almost long tail kind of vision. But in the meantime, people got to move product, right? And so it's like, but I do think that the scale has tipped so far towards, again, like I said, performance, that, which is sales, right? Ultimately is sales, that it's like, I got to be number one. I got to be on the front page. I've got to, these keywords, all of these things. And it's so heavy on that side that I think some of those longer tail strategies are not prioritized in the same way, because you don't see the immediate result, right? And I think that's the space that we're in, honestly, right now, and I think that's spilling over into this AI-led commerce that we're seeing today. It's just about, I just want my product to be there. And what is really interesting too is when now you start to look at it from a brand level versus a customer team level, right? So depending on where you are and what agency how you're engaging with a brand, the priorities are going to be different, right? So, if you're working with the Walmart customer team, they want a Walmart listing to be there when that shopper is looking for something. But if you're serving the brand, maybe they don't care what retailer. Maybe there's probably some benefits to certain retailers, right? So their strategy is a little bit different. So unifying those strategies between the brand and the retailer, because like these AI platforms are not necessarily, while they're making partnerships with certain retailers, they're not full. They're somewhat agnostic, not completely agnostic, but I would say in the future they will be pretty agnostic.
They should be.
Yeah, right. And it's just this weird space that we're in when it comes to that. And again, everybody's trying to, what's the playbook? What's the playbook? Because everybody's been trained on SEO and ranking and search listings, but the real long tail is building a brand, building trust, relating with your customer, and answering their needs, like their shopper needs. I still think a lot of the fundamentals are still going to apply.
Absolutely. And, I've always said I can sell anything to someone once.
Right.
Anything.
Yeah.
You tell them what they want to hear.
Right. Yeah.
You can, or make it $1, right?
Yes.
That'll sell it to them.
Yeah.
They will buy it once. The trick is, how do you get them to continue to buy it? How do you make sure you're selling it to the right person? You can't sell your product to just anyone, because if you sell it with a false bill of goods, they're not coming back. Right. And now they're probably going to completely pan you on reviews to everyone they know. Right. So building that trust is a long-term solution. And the fact is, efficiency and sales are important.
Yeah, 100%.
There's no question.
I am not discrediting that.
But you have to have a longer-term strategy.
Right.
You can't just be reactive when it comes to new advances in tech. Otherwise, you're going to get the dash button, which lasted for how long?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, not long.
Some companies can afford to do that, to just try stuff out and go for it. Right. But Amazon, had a long-term plan for testing things out, for seeing what worked and what they were going to do in the future, right? It wasn't just that one-off. So that's something that people can learn, is that you try things, test things out, but make sure that that's not your only strategy. Make sure that you're thinking through, how could this evolve? What could we do to push it forward in the future?
Yeah, no, I love that. I think it's definitely a now and a later thing, right? What do we need to do now in order to, continue to sell products, and what's our long-term vision? If the long-term vision is just to keep just making sure we rank, I think it's a short-term view, honestly. And some brands may be able to do that, right? So ones with high household penetration and stuff, but you're still going to probably not maximize your opportunity if all you're doing is just looking at the now, and what do I need to do this now? What do I need to do next, and build my brand, build familiarity and trust with my products as well. So
absolutely.
All right. So when it comes to AI, there is a lot of ways that people can use AI, and I think AI is that amazing starting point, right? You use any LLM and you ask it a question, it's going to give you a response. Mm-hmm. Whether it's a good response or not, that's up for evaluation. Obviously, there's a lot of work to make sure that it gives you this response that you're looking for. But I think there's also this whole idea that AI is, as you indicated earlier, it's like AI is super smart, right? And so it really gets into this idea of is AI providing me a strategy, right? Can I go to AI and it's going to provide me a strategy for a plan for my brand at a retailer or nationally? But before we really dig into that, I think it would be important to let's just define what strategy is first, right? So how do you define strategy?
All right, that is such a loaded question. The word strategy is used for everything.
Right. I have a hard time defining it, and I've had strategic roles. So I love your point of view.
Exactly. So for me, my department at Marsh United Commerce is called Strategic Planning. It's very deliberate why we have both those words in the name of our department, because those are kind of two separate capabilities. Being strategic means that you have informed yourself, you have collected the data, you have searched, you have figured out, what are all the numbers telling you. You are then able to start to predict what should be. So this is how we should move forward based on historicals. This is what we know has worked in the past. These are the things that we see out there in the world. That's how you're forming your strategy. So it could be quantitative, could be qualitative, but you're gathering all the information. Unfortunately, that's where a lot of people stop and think that they can just move forward from there. Planning is more, in our function, it's more of the British side of our history as a function. It is more of the creative element. It's where you start to connect dots. It's where you start to ideate on potential things that all that information could mean. What could that mean for a shopper? What could it mean for a brand or a retailer? And that's where the ingenuity comes in. That's where you start getting creative.
Right. Yeah. I what I've learned, and maybe I learned this wrong, so you feel free to correct me.
I will.
But I always felt like a strategic plan was based upon a great insight. Is insight part of strategy? Is it part of planning? Where does the insight and it's always the hardest thing to get to, I think, in a lot of ways. But where does insight play in that equation?
Again, it depends on who you're asking. So there are different types of insights, right? Is it a sales insight? Is it a business insight? Is it a shopper insight?
Right.
In my function, in the commerce space, we're inspiring creatives to come up with new ideas. So for us, a good insight is going to fall into the planning portion of it.
Yep.
because that's where you are creating new, innovative ways of thinking about something that unlocks something in the creative brain. At the end of the day, my insights need to inspire. Whereas if you are a category manager, a data point might be an insight.
Yeah.
And an insight might just be something you didn't know
Yep.
that triggers you to think about your management differently.
Yep. Yep.
But in our space, it has to fall in that planning bucket because we have to get our creatives inspired.
Got it. Cool. All right. So we kind of deviated a little bit. Let's come back to AI, right? And so we've defined strategy, kind of ish. We talked about insights, all that. But again, there's this whole idea that I can just go to AI and I can ask it a question. It's going to give me a strategy. What are your thoughts on that? I'm opening it up big.
You're just letting me on this one. The biggest thing is that any LLM, any agent you go to has been trained. Its foundation is on what exists.
Yep.
So it is taking what exists and trying to put it together in different ways.
Right.
That's not necessarily original thought. With a human, we are taking what exists and layering on what might even seem to be randomness, right? What could this mean in this context? What does that feel like? What could this look like if we're talking?
Like using your imagination, right?
Yes.
To a certain extent.
Yes. And, actually, last night, my boss sent out an article from I believe it was the University of Montreal, that did a study looking at creativity from AI. And what it found is that AI can actually match the creativity of an average human if you program it right. Right? That's a whole other thing.
Still hard
because you still have to have the creativity to program it properly.
Correct, yes.
But even with that, it can match the creativity of your average human. At a good agency with good creatives and good planners, that's not your average human when it comes to creativity.
Right.
Yeah. We're building something new. We're thinking about things in ways that no one's thought of before. And even if you come out with something that feels immediately true, that it doesn't mean that we haven't thought about it in a completely different way. Right. You probably never would have gotten there on your own. But it does feel true because we're basing it on that strategy part of strategic planning.
Right.
And so what an LLM brings back is going to feel smart, but it's average smart.
Yeah. Well, it goes back to the trust thing, right? LLM is going to bring back something that should be good so that you gain trust in it, right? So it's always going to kind of bring back its best idea.
Well, even then you have to know, your prompt writing has to be so good and cover so many different things that you're getting the right answer. Because when you say what's going to work best for what?
Yeah, right. What's your criteria?
What's your
best?
criteria?
Yeah.
So you've got to go through all that, and then you're leading it down a specific path. And the more specific you get, the more consistent the answer is going to be. So that means if you and I are working for two different brands and we both learn how to prompt something really well, and we put in similar criteria, chances are we're going to come out with the same answer. So then what happens? Our brands start looking the same. So it's a constant balance, and it's a scary little spot for marketers to go to say, I'm going to trust AI over an agency.
Yeah. I mean, you still have to have a certain level of expertise to know when it's giving you something good, when it's giving or versus something that's not good. Right. And, and then also how to interact with it in a way to your point, to give you the output that you desire. Right. And so, and you use ambiguity of best, now you're leaving it to them to figure out what best is. And that may not necessarily be the criteria that you really wanted to focus on. Right. So it does make it challenging to work with it in that way. in the world that I work in, just, getting it to bend to your will, if you will, is hard. It's hard. Like you put in a prompt, you're going to get a response, but to really get it to do something very specific, it still takes a lot of work, a lot of manipulation, a lot of coding, a lot of things to actually make it do the things that you want it to do.
And for the most part, it is designed to please you.
Right.
So you're going to
I
get
think
the
you
answer
go for trust. Yeah.
Exactly. You're going to get the answer you want.
Right.
But does that make it right?
Yeah.
You need more points of view, more perspectives, things that you hadn't thought about in order to get somewhere just truly ingenious.
Right. So how are strategists and planners today using AI? I have to imagine that a lot of them are using AI to help with their day-to-day tasks. How are they using it? And what are some best practices, or what are some good ways to use it?
Yeah. So at Mars, what we've done is we've made sure that our strategy department is well trained, first of all, just in prompts, how to write a good prompt, how to limit things like hallucinations or aggregations that are a little tricky when it comes to data.
Yep.
How do we make sure that it's not giving us something that is actually patently untrue? LLMs can actually hallucinate URLs. So you'll see something, it says it's sourced, but if you click on that link, it's not real. Right. It seemed like a URL that should exist, right? So first, we have to make sure that we understand how it works well enough to question it. But then what we can do with it is build agents that are built on our criteria. We've been doing a lot with that, where we can start to speed up some of the more manual tasks that we have. So sorting through data, cleaning data, looking for multiple sources to support something, right. All of those things. We can get an agent to sort through that stuff really quickly and then give us a really good foundation. And then what you can do is you can spend the rest of your time on the deep thinking. And so within the same amount of time that we might have for a project as we did 10 years ago, we can get so much deeper and richer and have better insights and better fodder for our creatives because we've been able to speed up the front part of it and be able to spend the time where our brains are the most valuable.
Yeah, I mean, that makes a ton of sense. And I think that's, again, that's the promise of AI, right? To take over some of the menial tasks that are laborious and don't add a lot of value so that the human can spend more time and doing the things they do, ideate and create and deep think and all of those things. So it makes a lot of sense. So,
and we can also use it as a thought partner.
Yeah, sure,
right?
For sure.
So I have one agent that is designed basically to argue with me.
Right.
And to push me on what my thought is. So if I say, this is the insight that I found, it'll be like, meh, is it?
Right.
Right. So, have you thought about this and this? There are two other angles you could have gone with this. Which one is really right? So it helps push me and increase my confidence, adding a little friction to my job to increase my confidence in my output.
Yeah. That's a great use case for sure. A lot of times I'll actually even take the output of one AI and then put it into another AI and have it actually evaluate it and see what it comes back with, and do that several times to get to a final output. But you're absolutely right. Having something that you can interact with to help make your finer points and challenge you is absolutely a great way to do it. So, if you're, let's just imagine you're in a conversation and, you're trying to show the value of what strategy and planning can be for a brand, and a brand is skeptical, what would be some things that you would share? Because they say, well, I have an AI tool, or we have a system in place, an agent that can do this. What would be your case there?
Internally in my head or coming out of my mouth?
Well, I think probably, well, I would hope there's, I think there's obviously things you have to say and things you can't say and things you shouldn't say. But let's start with what's in your head.
Be better, right? It's about what we talked about with the fact that this is built on what is. You're going to get the lowest common denominator, the minimum viable product. Will it work? Maybe.
Yeah.
It might work well enough for now, but you should be skeptical. You shouldn't be satisfied with that.
Right.
Right. You should be thinking about what could be added on to this from a human perspective that could make this something huge, something that really works and is an example. And, you're never going to make a name for yourself as a marketer by going with what AI puts out for you. You're never going to be written up in the trades for it. You're going to coast through.
But you can make your own trade.
Exactly. Talk about yourself.
And talk about yourself and use AI to do it.
Exactly. And you know what? More power to you if you want to do that.
Awesome. Well, it's been great having you on today, Danish. I absolutely love your thought into, the whole psychology piece. Obviously, as I said, AI has been so disruptive in so many parts of our industry, and obviously yours as well. And that article that you wrote, just like I said before, hit home for me. So, it's great having you on.
It's been great to be here. I could just sit and pontificate all day.
We could probably do this for days. So, all right, party people, it's time to wrap this episode of Retail Media Vibes. Huge thanks to Danish for joining me today. So thank you so much. How was that for you?
It was great.
Yeah.
I love it.
Would you come back?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome. So do you have anything that you'd like to shout out or plug before we wrap today?
Obviously, I'm super passionate about strategic planning.
Yeah.
So go see your strategic planners, talk to them, utilize them. We are so much more than data analyzers. We are trend spotters. We are business analysts. We're thinking about things from 1,000 different points at all times. We're dot connectors. There's so much that we can do to help in any given situation. So
I've with my interactions with strategy and planning, has always made me a better marketer, and talking to you and learning more is always it's great. So I totally feel you on that, because I think there's so much value that can be brought with strategy and planning. So
I think so.
You may be biased, but I would definitely say that's it's a great thing to have included, and make sure that they're engaged. So, all right. So if you enjoyed the show, give us a like, comment, you share it with your friends. If you have any comments or thoughts about the show, you can email me at retailmediavibes@gmail.com. So I want to thank you once again for tuning in, and as always, I will try to do better next time. BV out.